So we'll start the meeting. This is the Committee on Economic Development and Planning. The Chair, Ken Woodland, Vice Chair, Lisa Faulkner, Secretary, Vincent Picciarelli. We're here tonight as part of the Town Council approved process, considering our third host community agreement and public meeting follow-up for a marijuana dispensary in town. I guess as a way of background for our folks that are tuning in for the first time, we went through a very long process a few years ago in which Watertown determined that we were going to be having 3 dispensary licenses, and then the committee established a process by which we would approve those licenses. The part of the process we're doing tonight is review of the host community agreement, which is mandated under Mass General Law 94G, and following up on the community meeting, which was a requirement of all folks that are coming forward. So we've already approved 2 for the community, and this is the third. So I guess what I like to do is go in order. Sorry, if everyone could mute themselves as well, so we don't have any background chatter. But I guess what I like to do is start with the host community agreement. We received a finalized copy of that earlier this afternoon, but I guess start with Steve Magoon, if he could just run through how this compares to the prior 2 HCAs that we have approved. If there's any terms that are different or any distinguishing pieces you think would be relevant for the discussion.
Sure, thank you, Councilor. I would characterize the host community agreement that was reviewed by the applicant and by Mark Rich as being consistent with the document that Mark Rich and KP Law has submitted to us as a model HCA. It complies with the legal requirements as established by the legislature. So within that, there is an allowance for a 3% of revenues to come back to the town to offset the costs associated with having such a facility in the municipality. This agreement does include that. We did have some discussions about revisiting the HCA after it expires, and I think we worked out some reasonable language there. It is consistent with the other host community agreements that we have within town, with the one exception of the first one that was done, which was for a medical facility, did have some other provisions in that. But since then, the 8 host community agreements that we've done for the 3 applications in town have been consistent. And so while there may be some very minor language differences, I'd say nothing of substance is different in this HCA.
Okay. First, I'll open it up to the committee members if there are any questions on the HCA. Councilor Faulkner.
Thank you. Steve, could you just point to, I got it up in a Word document. It says it's redline, but that feature's not in my Word of what we got today. The differences between the packet that was mailed to us, is there things you can point to that just to be aware of?
Well, when you say the packet that was sent to you, you mean previously, other than what was sent today?
Yeah, so I mean, I know the packet has everything, but I was just on the host agreement. It's just missing from our packet, right? So this is the draft that we got today, or?
Yep. So the HCA draft is the one that you got today.
Yeah, okay.
We go through the back and forth with the attorneys, Mark Rich and legal counsel for the applicant.
Okay, when it said red line in the email, I thought maybe I was missing something to compare it to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Vinny.
Yep, I'm just, I read through the host community agreement today, the proposed host community agreement today, and it looks, it's basically the same as, pretty much exactly the same as the other 2 establishments in Watertown, the other 2 recreational establishments in Watertown. So it's fairly plain vanilla, meets the requirement with the 3% fee. So I'm satisfied with that.
Great. I'll open it up if there are other counselors or members of the public that have any questions on the host community agreement. Please just raise your hands and we can recognize you. Sorry, Councilor Feltner, did you have another?
Well, yeah, I mean, sorry, this just came out this afternoon and it's 5 o'clock, so I haven't had a chance. I trust that it's, kosher. But I wonder if Steve might one of the main things that kind of comes up in general is security, if Steve wants to touch on. I know that we had a good presentation with the applicant last meeting describing that, but I don't know if Steve or someone else wants to speak to that and how this is conveyed in the host agreement.
Sure. And I'll do two things. I'll touch on a couple points, but I'd be happy to let the applicant, address that in more detail as well, because I'm sure that they're more familiar with the details of their security plan than I am. So a couple things I would offer on that. One is that, while the host community agreement does talk about that in a general sense, a lot of the details of that, in my mind, are more appropriate to this site plan process, which will follow this. Assuming that the council says that they're acceptable to move forward, then we would enter into the site plan process and get into the details of their operations much more so than we do now. They have committed to involving the Watertown Police Department and making sure that they're comfortable with the security plans that they do have, and that they also obviously meet the state requirements for security, which are pretty substantial. They require video monitoring and cataloging and tracing product from basically from seed to being sold or disposed of. I'm comfortable that in a general sense, those bases are covered, and we would get into more of the details of that, things like traffic control and stuff like that as part of the site plan process. With that, Mr. Chairman, if it makes sense to you, Jay, if you wanted to further elaborate, feel free.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Steve. I would add that, consistent with the community meeting, we heard from the counselors loud and clear that they were looking for us to sit down with Chief Lon, who we know and have a working relationship with. As I said at the community meeting, I think we were really looking to get some feedback so that we could take really a final plan to him. Obviously, that will get worked through even more through the site plan, as Steve mentioned. We had a very productive meeting with Chief Quinn from the fire, as well as Chief Lon. Chief Lon actually reached out to the chiefs of police in Somerville and Needham, where we currently operate. He received what he categorized as glowing reviews. And I actually just spoke with Chief Lon before we got on this call today, and he did ask me to convey that he's in full support of our proposal. I know that he's let Mike Driscoll know that, town manager, and the chief said he's happy to speak. Chief Lon said he's happy to speak with any members of the public or any council members if they have questions about his review of our security plan. We agreed to, assuming the council deems it appropriate for us to move forward, we did commit to creating a small task force that will be meeting with Chief Quinn's team and Chief Lon's team as we get closer to a theoretical opening to work through the details of the site. I will end with Sierra Naturals has been operating for 7 years. It was actually one of the first 10 licenses issued by the Department of Public Health in 2013. And we are the only operator still in operation that has 0 deficiencies and 0 incidences. And in fact, the State Cannabis Control Commission uses us as a training facility to bring in new inspectors to actually show inspectors at the state level what a good retail operation should look like. So we're very proud of our track record, and we look forward to working with Chief Lon and all of you in addressing any and all concerns or questions you may have. So I'll end there, and Councilor Feltner, if there's specific questions regarding security that I didn't touch on, I'm happy to follow up with some more detail.
you.
Okay. Is this for security or the HCA? Counselor
This
Feldman?
is for HCA if you're talking to me.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah, so similarly, I didn't know on the HCA how detailed. I thought that the Sierra Naturals the applicant had a wonderful presentation about meeting with the community to discuss any community impact concerns quarterly. So I didn't know, number 6 of the host community agreement addresses that kind of generally that they'll meet annually. I didn't know if above and beyond that was usually written into the host agreement, or again, if that is more detail that's provided at the site hearing. I don't know, Steve Magoon cares to comment on that.
I would say that that's not something that would typically necessarily be in the host community agreement. Not that we couldn't put in a requirement like that if we deemed it necessary. I think the host community agreement reflects what, things are required between the municipality and the applicant. And also as part of the site plan and special permit process, again, if that's something that we wanted to require, that would certainly be appropriate to include as a condition of the approval at that point as well.
Thank you. I think that's all my questions for now, in case something else comes up. Thank you.
Okay. I'll open it up. Anyone that's on the call, Counselor Gannon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just curious about the ownership team of Sierra Naturals and the track record. How many locations? Are there states involved? Someone could just address that, please.
Maybe I can start, and I'd love to turn it over to David Rosenberg, who's here as the president and CEO. We operate, as I said, very successfully, is really the gold standard here in Massachusetts, in Somerville, as well as Needham. We are pursuing an adult use license on Boylston Street in Boston, as well as an adult use license here, medical and adult use here at 48 North Beacon. David and Lou Carger both have been original co-founders of the company. David is the president and CEO here locally of Sierra Naturals. Lou Carger owns the real estate at 48 North Beacon and serves on the board. The board is made up of 4 individuals, all of which are local Massachusetts business leaders, folks that you would know from the community. There's a 5th board member who is associated with a publicly traded company that does have licenses in other states. And they have been in a really important part of our success, as this is an incredibly capital intensive industry, as you would know. This group self-fundraised around $15 million in order to build what we have so far. And as you know, building the cultivations that are required to support these kind of retail operations are in the many tens of millions. And so we've been excited to align ourselves with opportunities to expand our portfolio. So David, I don't know if there's more you'd like to add. David is the founder also of Prime Motor Group, which many of you guys know, and was recently the 2019 Boston Business Journal Social Justice Leader of the Year. And we're really excited to work with them. So David, I don't know if you have more you'd like to add to Councilor Gannon's question.
Jay, I think you answered the council's questions fully, but if there are any more questions, I'm happy to get involved in answering those.
Okay. Councilor Gannon, follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you've got locations in Needham and Somerville, applying to Watertown, applying to on Boylston Street. Now, it's my understanding, at least it used to be, that no owner could own or control more than 3 locations. Could you address that issue, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's it's 3 locations per license category. So adult medical use are separate license categories. Needham is a medical use only community, and so we run probably one of the more successful medical use operations in the state out of Needham. We don't anticipate, to be honest with you, that becoming an adult use facility potentially ever. So we look to have Watertown be a co-located medical and adult, just like Somerville will be medical and adult. Boston is not interested in pursuing a medical license on Boylston Street, and so is only interested in adult. So we see really Boston and Needham being unique in that one will serve adult and one will serve medical. So I hope that answers that question.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on the HCA from anyone in attendance? Okay. Councilor Picciarelli.
Yeah, I just want to go back. So the question is, if Watertown's going to be both medical and recreational, would there be maybe this is more a question of Steve Magoon. So I know medical that there's no taxes collected on those. What would be the plan for? Would there be an additional host community agreement just for medical, or how would we handle that?
That's a good question. I'm would assume, and the host community agreement talks about total revenues from the location, so it doesn't distinguish between medical or adult use. So no, I would not anticipate that we'd need a separate host community agreement. The reason we did have a separate one for the first applicant was because it first came in as medical, and so we established a host community agreement for that operation. Then, as you recall, the legislation changed in terms of the requirements of what we could include in the host community agreement, and then they came back for their recreational. So that necessitated that we then do a separate agreement, host community agreement for that. But in this case, no, I think both operations would be covered by the one host community agreement.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sorry, Vinny, it's the local option that only applies to the recreational and not the medicinal. Right. So the 3% that we are accepted locally only applies to that piece of the business.
The 3% of tax, but we still, the impact fee of 3% is on everything.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to be sure that that's how we do, and the tax reporting to the state would square up what the sales taxable, what's not sales taxable. Okay, I just wanted to be clear. Thanks.
Sure.
And just to follow up to that, Mr. Chair, so that's 3% of gross sales, correct?
Correct.
For the impact fee, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Are there any other follow-ups on the HCA? Okay, I don't see any. So I think the next topic we have here is a follow-up from the community meeting. Steve, do you mind giving an update on any issues that got brought up there, or a summary? I was able to not attend live, but I thank the applicants for posting that online. I was able to watch it after. So Steve, is that okay? Do you want to do that, or?
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend it either, and so I feel I'm at a bit of a disadvantage. The applicant has provided a summary of the meeting. If it would be okay with you, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask that they kind of overview that, and I can certainly provide any additional commentary or thoughts in addition to that, if you'd like. That's
sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. And the applicant did send along a nice 120-page summary, nice bedtime reading. So thank you for that. So that's fine. If someone would like to briefly give some highlights from the community meeting, and then we'll open it up to questions from the public.
No, thank you so much. I'm happy to do that. And if anyone from my team feels as though I've missed something, please do weigh in. I first just want to thank Councilor Feltner. It's been great partnering with her and her team. We working with her, it significantly exceeded both the state and local requirements for notice. Local and state requirements require 300 feet adjacent to the parcel. We notified 500 feet. It only requires standard mail. We did certified mail. We also posted 6 times in both the Watertown Tab and Watertown News online. We also put all the meeting materials up more than 3 weeks in advance, both through the town planning department, through Steve's team, as well as on our publicly available website, www.48nbeacon.com. The meeting was well attended. I would say there's about 38 or 40 folks that logged in. The majority of the town council was in attendance. We gave about a 45-minute presentation providing an overview of Sierra Natural's extensive experience and programming. I think relative to the HCA, I think it's important to know that we really view the 3%, everything in the HCA is a minimum. We go well above and beyond those. We give significant, we're actually Cass and Somerville's largest philanthropic supporter. Similarly, we are also Back Bay Association's largest philanthropic supporter. I would note even more than State Street and Liberty Mutual. So we do contribute significantly to the community. David Rosenberg, who's on, is a longtime board member and supporter of Right Turn Watertown. So we really do view the work that we do, the provisions of the HCA as a real minimum. So we talked a lot about the programming that we're involved with, including launching the state's first accelerator program, which supports economic empowerment applicants. 2 of the graduates just got approved by the CCC for Chelsea and Mattapan. Really excited about that. So we really went through that. We talked about our experience. I talked about the 0 incidences, our comprehensive security plan. In terms of public feedback, I would say the main things we heard from Council President Sedaris, who I see is on tonight. Thank you so much, Mr. President. Both he and several of his council colleagues, your council colleagues, I think really reinforced what we've already talked about related to Chief Lon. I'm really proud of the meeting we had with Chief Lon, and I think it really demonstrates our commitment and our experience that Chief Lon was able to get those references from our fellow chiefs that in towns we operate in already. There were some comments related to concerns that locating this at 48 North Beacon would negatively impact home values. I provided some studies that have been done by the University of Wisconsin, as well as the University of Mississippi, relative to home values in Colorado and California, based on several years of adult use operations there. And in fact, homes that are located within a half mile of a well-regulated, like we have in Massachusetts, dispensary location actually see increases in property values between 6 and 8%. There were some concerns and questions relative to crime and kind of the quote element that may come to town with a dispensary located at 48 North Beacon. Again, I provided numerous studies, including from UCLA and other universities, that show that violent crime and property crime are actually reduced by 20 to 30%, and that's well documented. And again, we've had 0 incidences. We have a no tolerance policy. If people are loitering or seeking to consume any products on site or anywhere in the neighborhood, we will put in a lifetime ban on that customer. They are not to return to any of our store locations, and we will maintain, as we do today, a list of banned consumers. To be honest with you, we've not had that problem in Somerville or Needham, and we don't anticipate that problem here. But again, we are cognizant of the fact that this commercial location is near residential homes. While it's a commercial district, there are homes nearby, and we want to make sure that we are working with them. To that end, we committed to quarterly meetings, as Councilor Feltner mentioned, and again, Happy to have that in the HCA, but that is something that we do everywhere we are located and will do here. A gentleman by the name of Mr. Wu, who I believe you've heard from, who is located across the street, did convey that he's concerned about this being located across the street and what it might mean for him. Again, I provided assurances based on data that his home values will increase, that crime will decrease. That is a very rundown piece of real estate. I think we can all agree on that. And we plan on significantly improving it, increasing lighting. We will have very professional security on site at all times. And so I made the argument that I believe it will actually improve the area. We have reached out numerous times to Mr. Wu to sit down with him and his family to have discussions. We have not heard back. I believe Councilor Bay has also forwarded our emails to him, since Councilor Bay has also heard from him. I believe several other councilors have heard from him as well. So I just want you to know we take very seriously. We're happy to sit down and figure out how we can mitigate any concerns, but I can only do that if we have an active dialogue. He absolutely has a right to oppose this, and you know, that's his prerogative, but we would be very happy to meet with any neighbors. I believe that's a summary of all the concerns we heard. I would say in total there was maybe 7 individuals, including counselors. I would say the majority were counselors that we heard from. I believe only maybe 4 people from the public testified. We did receive 3 or 4 emails prior to the meeting, including from one patient, actually someone who lives in Watertown that's a patient of ours who was really excited to support us. We also had the UFCW, who were proud to be the only union cannabis operator in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts today. We're the only cannabis operator with a bargaining agreement in place. And we look forward to partnering with UFCW as we do at all of our locations. So there were several UFCW members who came and supported the job creation that this location would offer. So I think that's a pretty good summary. Did I miss anything, Dwan or David, that was said that I didn't cover?
Yeah, just one thing, Jay. We also talked about the importance of hiring locally and how we were going to be Watertown first. And it is our intention to do everything within our power to hire folks from Watertown and create careers for Watertown residents.
Thank you.
Great. So what I'll do now is I'll open it up to everyone, any committee members or counselors or members of the public that have any follow-up questions or comments. We'll go from there. We'll start with Councilor Gannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So follow up on the community meeting, and I know this will be presented at the zoning board. I recently stepped down as a zoning board member myself to become a town councilor. Question about employee parking. What do you have on site? Will that accommodate both customers and employees of the location?
That's a great question, Councilor. So again, our special permit application we anticipate will be filed in completely October 14th. But obviously at this point we have a good sense of what will be in there, and I'm happy to cover it. So under zoning, as you would know, this commercial use based on the analysis would require 11 on-site spaces to accommodate the anticipated customers for this. This site as designed accommodates 17 on-site spaces. We do anticipate that there could be as many as 10 employees working there. We do have a comprehensive alternative transportation mode incentive program where all of our employees have 65% plus subsidization of whatever public transportation they may use. We also give all of our employees Blue Bike memberships. We will be installing 12 bike spots on site, including 4 dedicated to staff that are locked and covered. we've also committed to Laura and the transportation team to sponsor and underwrite a new blue bike station in Watertown. Given the fact that I think initial openings, I just want to start by saying I don't think that this initial opening at earliest would be August or September of 2021, so quite a ways away. And I would say there's about 120 licenses before the CCC that are likely ahead of us. That's on top of, I believe, about 70 that have already been approved. So by the time we get open, this is going to be, opening 201 in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So, we do anticipate that this is going to be kind of a minimal blip, if even a blip, on the radar. However, the reason we've had zero deficiencies in 7 years is we overplan. And so we feel like it's really important that we ensure we have sufficient parking. I think that's really the name of the game. To ensure we maximize the 17 on-site spaces, we have obtained leases for 6 off-site spaces that will be dedicated 100% only for employee parking. Those will be located at 48 to 76 Arsenal Street. And obviously we will be providing documentation to Steve and his team to show that those spaces don't take away from any other kind of zoning requirements for those buildings. So we do believe that this will be adequately covered. I will note that there are multiple bus lines that obviously have bus stops on both North Beacon and Arsenal, and we will be taking down the 2 limousine buildings to allow for pedestrian access across these 2 streets, I think really improving that block. Sean Manning from VHB or Hugh Hahn from VHB, is there anything you would add that I have not covered relative to transportation?
That was great, Jay. You've got a future in traffic engineering, but I would just reiterate, the strategy is to have more than enough parking, both for customers and for staff, to really go above and beyond and commit to doing a comprehensive TDM plan in a circumstance where we're really only required to do a basic one. And the proponent is very excited to do that, and really excited to get people involved with blue bikes, which I know is an exciting new thing for the town of Watertown. And again, to incentivize people to use transit by providing some pretty generous subsidies. So we think we've got a very good plan in place that's going to result in really no parking on street or in the neighborhood. It's all going to be on site.
I believe I think the comprehensive TDM requires a minimum of 17 TDM points. Is that right, Sean?
I believe so. I don't have it in front of me, but we're going well beyond whatever that requirement is. We're going beyond it.
Yeah, obviously, Councilor Piccirilli, you know that better than anybody. But I believe it's 17 is the minimum, and we are attesting to 23 in our filing.
Great. Are there any other questions or comments? Councilor Feltner.
Thank you. Just 2 questions. One, I know you put it in the notes, it came up. And as you noticed, you're not, as you stated, you're not expecting to open for another year from now. But people are curious, your financials, what they showed. Can you give us an estimate? I know you were reluctant to before, of what we could anticipate, either with gross sales or, financial benefit to the town.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we anticipate that this is probably a $12 to $15 million gross location, and I'm terrible at math. There's a reason I got into my job and not. But if 15 million times 0.06 would be $900,000, back of envelope, that I would anticipate. Truthfully, medical sales are much less than they used to be. I will say, with medical sales being deemed essential during the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, you did see an increase in medical certifications as people were seeking to obtain product. But certainly when you look at Colorado, when you look at California that now have mature adult use markets, it's around probably 10 to 15% is medical sales. So, you know, given that Needham, a lot of our patients really like Needham, like the convenience of Needham, like the fact that Needham is only medical. I would anticipate that probably a large percentage of purchases made here will be adult use, and so therefore subject not only to the 3% gross, which again, to Councilor Piccirilli's point, the 3% would be applied to both medical and adult use sales, but the municipal excise tax of 3% would also be applied to the adult use sales. So for a total of 6% in aggregate. So I would say probably somewhere around $750,000 to $900,000 conservatively through the HCA and local tax option. And obviously we anticipate a lot more charitable giving above and beyond that. As an example, the Blue Bike Station, which I believe is a $40,000 commitment, approximately.
Thank you. And if I have one other question, Chairman. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know if Steve Magoon could answer. I didn't see anything in my emails. One that came up was a question about, you know, in Watertown, we voted to have the 500-foot buffer, including parks, not just schools. Can you speak to that this location is outside of that buffer?
Sure. As you recall, one of the things that we talked about when we established that was how would we decide what constituted a park? And what we keyed to was a table in the park and recreation and open space plan of the town, the table that listed parks, and none of the parks that are listed there are within 500 feet. There is a delta that's within 500 feet, but that was not considered a park. And so it does meet the requirements as established in our regulatory framework.
Are you referring to Irving Park or?
Yeah. And then, you know, similarly, there's a small park that was put in as part of the Elan project. And again, that's a private property that is available as a public space, public open space, but not listed in our table of public parks.
Is that the park that's that was part of the former Pirelli project?
Correct.
Yep. And that is private, will not be conveyed to the town.
Correct.
Thank you.
I think I saw a hand from Councilor Donato.
Thank you, Councilor Woodland. I just wanted to say that the presentation 3 weeks ago was by far the best Zoom meeting I've been a part of during the pandemic. So I really want to congratulate you on a great presentation. I was also really happy to hear about the follow-up with the neighbor because I know he was one of the more vocal people on that meeting, and he has reached out probably, I would imagine, to the entire council. So I'm a little disappointed to hear that he is not engaged with you, but I'm happy to see that you said at the meeting that you were going to follow up with those people. I'm really happy to see that you did that, and I just hope that that continues as we move forward here. And I think that's a great first step, and again, acknowledge your efforts to date.
Councilor Piccirilli, I think we saw your hand as well.
Sure. I did want to say, yeah, we had a link on the agenda for people to contact me through email. I did want to say I got one email from Steve Tolman he's the president of Massachusetts AFL-CIO. And I would just, I will attach this to the minutes, but just a moment to read it. It says the Massachusetts AFL-CIO strongly supports Sierra Naturals' bid for Watertown cannabis license. Sierra Naturals has proven itself to be a responsible corporate citizen. Recently, Sierra Natural employees in Milford ratified their first collective bargaining agreement with the United Food and Commercial Workers Local 1445. Provisions of the contract include general wage increases, vertical mobility, health insurance options, and union representation on the job. That union contract makes it the first in Massachusetts cannabis industry. Furthermore, Sierra Naturals is committed to racial equality and inclusion. Issues of racial justice are of paramount importance to the Massachusetts AFL-CIO, as it should be for any licensing board. The Massachusetts AFL-CIO is hopeful the Watertown Town Council will take into consideration Sierra Naturals' commitment to racial justice as well as continuing to maintain labor peace agreements with UFCW Local 1445. That's the only email received.
Thank you. So if there are any other questions or concerns, not just counselors, any members of the public or anything, just use the raise your hand function if you have a question or. So I don't see any. Councilor Picciarelli, any chance?
Mr. Camacho.
Oh, sorry. Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Yes, I'm the political and organizing director for UFCW 1445. And yes, we strongly support Sierra Natural's bid for a Watertown license, not only because it's going to bring good jobs to Watertown, but also because they are committed to racial justice. And this is something that's extremely important to our local. Our local leadership, elected leadership is, immigrants of color. And we need to emphasize that if we're going to have economic justice, it has to embrace racial justice. So that's why we support this bid, and we'll entertain any other questions if you have.
Thank you. Councilor Picciarelli, will you make a motion? We get that on the floor.
I will. I will make a motion to recommend the full town council authorize the town manager to execute the host community agreement as presented for the adult use marijuana application for Sierra Naturals, Inc. at 48 North Beacon Street.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. And I'll open it up if anyone has any other questions or comments before we vote. Sorry, Councilor Gannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm supportive of the measure, and I'm not a member of this committee, but I did appreciate the commitment to donations from the ownership team to Right Turn and any other addiction support groups. It's good to see that a vendor in this business is giving assistance to folks who may be addicted to certain substances. So I do appreciate that.
Thank you. I thought I saw a hand from someone who may not have a camera. Did I miss that? So I guess is any other comments or questions or anything? Okay, so I'm not seeing any. We have a motion in a second. So we have to do a roll call vote, right?
Correct.
All right. So Councilor Picciarelli?
Yes.
Councilor Feltner?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll
So
second
moved.
that.
Seconded. Councilor Picciarelli?
Yes.
Councilor Feltner?
Yes.
Myself, yes.